Welcome back, humor consumers, to the Life Happens, Laugh Anyway podcast. I'm comedian Tracy Degraff.
And I'm Catherine, co-host, Bestie.
Catherine.
Hi, Tracy. Baby.
You excited?
Yes, I am. I'm ready to go.
Okay. She called me baby, not as a term of endearment.
Yes, I did.
Okay. We're covering the topic of birth order today, friends.
Yeah.
This is an exciting topic.
It is.
Catherine, the oldest in the family, has been chomping at the bit to get in here because she reread the book.
The Birth Order by Kevin Lehmann.
By Dr. Kevin Lehmann.
Dr. Kevin Lehmann.
Dr. Kevin Lehmann.
Yes.
Whom we both had the pleasure of seeing in person. Was that at the Hearts at Home conference, Mother's Conference?
I believe we saw him there and Olivet.
Nice. So we've seen him a couple times. I've loved Dr. Kevin Lehmann over the years and still love him. And I think he's funny.
He's very funny.
I really like that about him.
He strives to be funny.
Yeah. He works at it maybe, but he really... He really delivers the goods. And that's the topic of our podcast today is birth order. And we're going to give you a solid review of the birth order book by Dr. Kevin Lehmann. All right. We have a couple takeaways that we've listed here on our little worksheet. You're going to hear about the book. That's one takeaway.
Right.
Second one is you're going to hear about our experiences. Which we
Whether you want to or not.
Well, they want to or they wouldn't
I
tune
think
in.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And Catherine, as I've mentioned, is the oldest in her sibling group of 3. And it's 2 girls and 1 boy. I am the youngest of my sibling group of 3, also 2 girls and 1 boy.
Yes.
So it's flippity-flop.
Right.
So you're going to get to hear about our experiences and our adventures as besties and the opposite birth order situation.
Yeah.
Totally fun. And then finally, we have a call to action like we always do, which you got to stay tuned. And we're going to give you a little assignment and a little scripture to encourage you that no matter what your birth order, God has something to say about it and it's all good.
True. And who are our sponsors?
Oh, I always forget about the sponsors.
We can't.
I know.
They sponsored this whole thing and allow us. I think allow might be.
Don't use that word.
No.
Let's just say our sponsors are Puffin.
Yes.
Our husbands, Kenny and Ron, who also have nicknames. Catherine calls Kenny Pooh. I call Ron Muffin. So we go Pooh and Muffin, Puffin.
There you go.
Those
Simple
are our sponsors. And the supporters of the Tracy Degraff Ministries also are sponsors because they were the ones that purchased this equipment.
That's true.
That we're talking on right now.
Why don't you describe Tracy Degraff Ministries?
Tracy Degraff Ministries is my comedy / speaking / authoring / podcasting ministry mission / vision.
/
A lot of slashes. And it is... There's an we just prayed about not having
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
What I do is I bring 2 missions basically to my audience. And I am on a quest to introduce people to Jesus and mammograms.
Yes.
Right? Because they both save. So Jesus will save your soul and a mammogram, guess what? Will save your life. Because the sooner you get a hold of that cancer stuff, the better.
Right. And how did you get involved in the cancer realm of things?
Because I am one. Because I am a cancer.
Yes.
Not I am a cancer. I am a survivor.
You're not a cancer.
You're a cancer. You're a disease.
Yeah. Thankfully, you're not.
Remember that from Home Alone? You're a disease, Kevin.
Oh, yes. The baby.
Yeah, I know.
Of the family.
I know.
That's
and he's
right.
so cute and adorable. Kevin?
He instigated
He was cute.
He was cute. But he instigated that whole... Oh, actually, no. The older brother did. Now that I think about it.
They wouldn't even have a movie without Kevin, Catherine.
No, no doubt he is cute.
He's the star.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we go. This is going to be a ride. Buckle in, friends, because Catherine and I are going to have fun. Thank you, by the way, for mentioning the ministry, because we are full bore ahead in terms of the pandemic. Now is done. It's donezo, and live events are on.
Yeah.
And we're getting out there.
Yeah.
So anybody listening who has a church that would like to host a Life Happens Laugh Anyway outreach event, I'm your gal.
Yeah.
For
Reach
that.
out. Make a comment.
Yeah.
Contact.
Let us know, because we're booking now. And or if you're connected to a hospital or breast center that would like to do a breast cancer awareness event, also, I'm your gal.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's roll with Dr. Kevin Lehmann.
Yeah. So this Dr. Kevin Lehmann, he is an expert in the field of the birth order. I consider him an authority in it. He has, when he wrote this book and revised it, I think the last time he revised it was the late 90s.
That's a long time ago.
And at that point, he had 25 years experience. And he studied lots of data, and he really, I guess a way to sum it up is the law of averages is really what it comes down to in terms of being able to say, yes, firstborns are basically like this, middle ones are basically like this, and then the babies of the family are typically like this.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and if you're just now hearing for the first time birth order and the study of it, it's exactly what you might think. It's exactly how it is described. It's the order of your birth within your family of origin.
Right, and how it affects your personality.
Right.
You know, why you are the way you are. And how
that's a
you
good
can,
way to put it. Why you are the way you are. And what's the other part of it?
Well, and how you can recognize your strengths and your weaknesses, and then, you know, kind of figure that out and make that work to your advantage.
Right. And grow.
Exactly.
Growth is good.
It's always good.
Unless you're talking about, your hips. Then it's like, oops.
Or cancer.
True.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta be careful how you say that.
Right.
All right. Well, in general, if I've never heard of birth order, or I've never heard of Kevin Lehmann, in general, give me your take, like a summary of the book.
A summary of the book? Okay. It would be a collection of Dr. Lehmann's observations and experience in counseling and in research of birth order and how it affects people on their everyday lives, their successes and their weaknesses.
Yeah.
And I would, and also, like I said earlier, you can use that to your advantage. How you can correct some of your weaknesses and how you can expound on some of your strengths.
Yeah, and I think that it can also help you understand the people around you.
Very much so.
So that you can have a little bit more compassion. Yeah, grace is another word that would be great to have in relationships.
Yeah.
For others, because we all have strengths and weaknesses, and we all have a birth order that we had nothing to do with. It's not like we were in the womb going, I want to be first, or I want to be last.
Yeah.
No, it just happens. You are who you are.
Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed out, like, how would I summarize that, and also how it affects people around you, because he also addresses how when you first become a parent, what's the best way to raise your firstborn, your middle, and your last child. He also has advice on, in the professional world, how to handle yourself.
And just a little side note for parents, because some moms might be listening who are like us and the parenting gig is already done. Catherine and I pray before every episode of this podcast, and we take turns. Well, this time it was her turn, and when she prayed about the parenting part of it, she was like, "Oh, well, oops," because we all we do what we do. We do the best we can with what knowledge we have.
Yeah.
And then we keep going forward. So if you're like us and we're in our 50s, our kids are grown and flown. They're done. Don't sweat it if you didn't apply any of the above that we're about to share with your own kids. It's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
God will fix it.
I went along with that, but yes, it is true though.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know that your plan is to describe now what he defines as the oldest child and their traits and characteristics. Same for middle children and youngest children. So let's dive in there.
All right. Well, we are going to go over, first of all, I got to flip to it because I just realized when I wrote my notes, I went straight to the firstborn and ignored the other two.
Why is that, Catherine?
Isn't that crazy? Because, I did extensive preparation for this. But here we go. Overall, the firstborn is typically a perfectionist, reliable, conscientious, list maker, well-organized, hard-driving, natural leader, critical, serious, scholarly. When I read that one, I was like, really? But he describes that later. Kind of means, more like, likes to read, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Logical, doesn't like surprises, loves computers. I read that because I'm a firstborn, in case you missed it, and I hate computers.
Yeah.
In many, overall.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a love-hate thing.
What'd you do?
I almost closed the book like we're done.
Oh.
But we have to go to the middle child.
Yeah, right.
Middle children and the last ones as well. But I'm going to add with the firstborn. They get the most work.
What do you mean?
They're given the most responsibility and the most work.
From
the parents.
Oh,
mm-hmm.
Yes.
Just saying. Self-sacrificing, conservative, supporter of law and order, legalistic, and self-reliant, hate to make mistakes. That's me.
Okay.
Some of those are not me.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
The reason that strikes me as just so funny is because when you're doing the reporting,
yes,
you have the emotion behind it. It's not fair.
It's
we get the most work.
Well, I remember that.
Those feelings of I have to do the most or I have to bear the brunt of this.
Mm-hmm.
I visualize it as going through the snow, right? Mm-hmm. So the firstborn is the first one to trudge through, and the rest of them just follow along in the footsteps, and it's not as hard.
Did you steal my book? Because that's what Dr. Lehmann said.
Oh, well, maybe.
He described it as the snowplower. I always described it as, and this is a common thought, breaking the ice, breaking the mold, all of those things.
Well, and just like you can't help it that you were born first and that you are the sibling, the one who is the first one. Okay, wait. I might be diving into the weeds here, so pull me out if I am. But for your parents and for my parents, right? Their firstborn, everybody's new. The parents, it's their brand new experience. They don't know what they're doing.
Okay, that exact reason is why a lot of times firstborns are the way they are, because it's also the parents' first one, and so they want to get everything right.
Right.
So
you're uptight.
Yes. Yeah. Even the most laid back parent is they typically treat the firstborn different than they do the next ones.
And it's okay because you can't help it. You don't have to have it all figured out. All right.
All this is an explanation of why you are.
Okay, so keep going.
All right. The middle one.
Yeah.
Or ones, because there could be a lot of middles. And okay, so they're the most mysterious in terms of being able to pinpoint them. Okay. And also, I'm just going to say this too, that there's always variables so that can throw off some of these characteristics.
There are, because of course, I'm envisioning my family of 5, and there are 3 people that are in the middle, 3 sons. I have 5 sons, and there are 3 of them in the middle. However, in the way that our family is structured, we had 2 children right away. Then there was a 5-year gap, and then we had 3 children all 2 years apart.
Yes.
That made for almost like 2 different orders of family, you know? So while my son Joel is our third born, he also has traits of a firstborn because he's the firstborn of that younger group.
Yes. And Dr. Lehmann goes into describing this more extensively in terms of those, what he terms as a role reversal. And that's different than a acting first child. So they're different.
Yeah, because the circumstances at hand can thrust you into a different role. Or you could have a blended family. Like my husband's family was blended. They had 3 kids from, his mother, and then they had 2 kids from his stepfather, and they were all blended together.
Exactly right. And also if there are special children born, children with some sorts of handicap that can throw things off quite a bit, and twins, things like that.
Yeah, I hadn't really recalled that there was a thing about twins, but now I do. All right. So what else does he say?
All right. Well, the middle children typically are mediators, compromising, diplomatic, avoid conflict, independent, loyal to peers, many friends, a maverick, secretive, unspoiled. He also says, though, that can be of all of the groups, the middle children can really vary the most, though. And we'll get into that a little bit more.
Figures. The middle child is more blurred. It's just like they're ignored.
And I can't remember if I said this in the beginning of our recording here, or if I said it when you and I were conversing earlier. But when I was diving into this whole thing, I just wanted to skip over the poor middle children.
Yeah.
I thought, Yawnsville. But I didn't. I did dive into it, and I'm glad I did. Actually.
So yeah, because it is fascinating and interesting. And when I look at my own family, like I mentioned, my son Joel, who's in the middle, he's really a great asset in our whole group of all 7 of us. Because he gets along great with everybody.
He does, but essentially, Luke, Joel, and Adam are your middle children. And actually, I wrote in my book here something about this describes Luke. Well, I'll get to it in a minute. But
all right.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the next one.
You skipped the baby.
No, I didn't.
You didn't talk about the baby.
I'm about to.
Oh, okay. All right, hurry up.
See? She cannot wait. I think it's funny that you announced that I was chomping at the bit to do this recording when all along I sensed you were, because the day before, we were supposed to record yesterday.
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready. And because I can be a little bit of a frustrated perfectionist is what I am. Okay. Oh, she's, if only the audience could see. She's got that.
Look.
Okay.
I
wasn't ready.
I was just
wanted
agreeing
more
with
time.
you.
No, I know. I wanted more time, and I knew we're like ready to do it yesterday and just dive right in.
Yeah,
reminds me of Superstar. She just
Molly Shannon.
Yes, Molly Shannon, and in that movie, she jumps right in the pool, whereas people like me put their toe in and get in slowly.
That's funny.
Oh yeah. All right, here we go. Here is the baby. Manipulative, charming, blames others, attention seeker, tenacious, people person, natural salesperson, precocious, engaging, affectionate, loves surprises.
Okay.
Yeah. That's to round it up or to summarize it, basically. Okay.
Yep.
And then there's a D list. This is for only children who are onlys, only them. Little adult by age 7, very thorough, deliberate, high achiever, self-motivated, fearful, cautious, vivacious reader, black and white thinker, uses very, extremely, exactly, a lot, can't bear to fail, has very high expectations for self, more comfortable with people who are older or younger. And he very often puts the category of onlys and firstborns together. They're very similar.
Well, because they are firstborns.
Well, they are, but firstborns and only children, they only have adults to learn from. So they're accustomed to adults. They try to emulate or measure up to adults' expectations, things like that. And so they have that in common.
Yeah. I remember when we were thinking about whether or not we should have a 4th child, right? And this is common knowledge in my family, so I'm not sharing anything that nobody knows.
Okay.
But Joel had been born, and he was a big surprise. They were all big surprises, every single one of them. And Joel is 5 years away from Luke, second born.
Wow.
And Ron and I believed the myth. He needs somebody to play with.
Okay.
All we did was give him somebody to fight with. That's what we did.
Yeah.
Because in our head, we were like, these two have each other.
Yeah.
Now we need to, we need another one to round this off. And then, of course, along came Caleb, and then the numbers were all skewed again. But
yeah. Right. Well, I have 3 kids, and typically most people stop at 3, according to Dr. Lehmann.
Okay.
Yeah, he says that it's easier for him as a psychologist to kind of figure out the middle child when it's that kind of setup.
Right, 1, 2, 3.
Exactly.
Instead of more than that, like we have.
Yes,
I gotcha.
exactly.
Okay.
All right. So we'll kind of unpack the firstborn person.
Okay.
And like I said earlier, they usually tend to be conscientious, well-organized, or at least want to be. Serious, goal-oriented, achieving people pleasers, and believe in authority. I have to say, I can relate to, when I look at achieving, a lot of times I think of in the professional world, but it's not necessarily always that, in terms of goal setting and hard driving. I definitely would not describe myself as hard driving, but I would in terms of family life and wanting to succeed in that kind of a way. Would definitely see myself as that, but not so much in the professional world.
Yeah.
But people pleaser, for sure. I wish I wasn't, but that's it. And I absolutely believe in authority.
Okay, why do you say I wish I wasn't?
Well, because you can get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Also, I just kind of admire when I see other people who aren't so much, and I think, well, that looks so easy to say no. And actually, Dr. Lehmann does, so out of all of the categories, he only has a list for the firstborn at the end of the chapter to kind of rate yourself and check off. And mostly because it relates to perfectionism and that's not a good thing to have. And so he's saying it's not a strength. And so one of them is, do you have a hard time saying no or something? And somewhere he has that. And I definitely struggle with that. Well, and it's gotten me, into a position.
I can see that. And in your case in particular, I'm sure you remember the time that I said no for you to the church.
A couple times.
Did I do it a couple times?
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember what the task was. Was it working in the nursery or cleaning the church or something?
No, it was cleaning in the church.
Okay. And at that particular time, you were going through a lot.
Yes.
Life was coming at you hard.
Yeah, and you knew that.
I did.
Right.
And she was not able to or wanting to say no. And I
recognized it.
I said no for her. I called the church because we go to the same church. And I said, look, Catherine's not available. End of story.
Yeah.
Donezo. Take her off the list.
Well, the way I remember it, we were actually there when you said that. But I mean, not. Well, here I go.
See? My memory of it is more vague. Like somehow it happened, whatever.
Yeah.
And you're more,
like, and it doesn't even matter. I know it doesn't. And yet I blurted it out.
That's all right.
Yeah. Thank you for having grace. Because we'll get to you next.
Oh, yay.
Or actually, after the middle one.
All right.
Yeah. Also, so as I said, perfectionist, reliable, list maker, critical, which I can be, definitely, of myself and others. Scholarly, self-sacrificing, conservative, supporter of law and order. Did I say that already?
I think you did.
Yeah,
authority.
Self-reliant and authority.
Is that why you got so rattled when you got pulled over for the little... the 2 times that I was with you and you were pulled over?
Oh,
does that rattle you?
It did, because I thought, what? What did I do?
Yeah.
What could... And
it wasn't for speeding at all,
because
Catherine's not a speeder. Well,
not
in town. I mean, we were in town for the one in Piatone, and then we were kind of like in town just leaving Bible study.
Yeah. I think, the reason I'm more of respect your elders and authority is not only my birth order, but also the type of parents I had were very
strict.
Yes. So, compounds the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And and also here's another thing to unpack with the firstborns. There's 2 categories. One is, and I fall under this one, the compliant nurturers and caregivers who want to please. But I have those qualities of being compliant, more want to just, instead of take on a leadership role, which many firstborns do statistically, I fall into the category of I'd rather be in the background and do the tedious stuff, and that's where I fall. The, pleaser. Oh, and I thought this was funny. So Dr. Lehmann, he is a baby of the family, and he married the oldest of the family. So his wife is, I'd rather not complain about it, but just grin and bear it nature. Remember that one comedian that said, "Oh, excuse me, you're stepping on my neck."
Paula Poundstone.
Is that who said that?
Yeah, she's so funny.
I'm more like that.
Yeah.
And he was talking about this incident in a restaurant where it's top notch, and he and his wife are having a meal, and he is just devouring his food. He loves it. And she is just sitting there quietly. And he says, "How's your meal?" And she says, "It's good." Well, he picks up on the fact that something's up. It's not so good. And she's like, "Well, the salmon's a little undercooked." And she didn't want to disrupt or bother anything. So he says to the maitre d', he says, "It's undercooked." Well, it was all taken care of. And they were, the cook and the chef or whatever, they were appalled that it was like that. And so they went above and beyond and corrected the whole situation. So I thought that was a funny little story there because I get it.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah. And also responsible is on here. I feel like, and this is like, I struggle with this, like to put these things on here because they sound like really good things. And then I feel like, oh, you can't,
you mean
talk about
it for firstborns?
Yes.
And why do you struggle with it?
I don't know.
Oh boy.
I don't know.
You're kind of put in a position of damned if you do and damned if you don't. Away.
Yes.
Sorry.
I would definitely say that. And you asked earlier, like, why do I struggle with some of the things about being a people pleaser?
Yeah.
And one of them is here on this page, he outlines that if you team up the compliant firstborn with a selfish narcissist or insensitive boss or spouse, then you have the making of like a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So that's the downside of that. So that's the category I fall under. But the other category is aggressive firstborns, known as the movers and shakers, leaders, strong-willed, high achiever. Yeah.
I read about the presidents of the United States, and Dr. Lehmann talked about, I think it's like 60 some odd % of our American presidents have been firstborns.
Yeah, a big,
And that's interesting.
It is interesting.
Well, and when you think about leaders, whether or not they're presidents of the United States, but just leaders in general. Well, firstborns, they were, as soon as the second one shows up, they're the leader. The firstborn has a lot of experience in leading.
Yes, that's exactly right.
The very first memory that I have in my life is of my brother helping me put my coat on. My oldest brother.
Really?
My only brother.
Yeah.
And he's only 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
But
your family's real close in age.
We're all close in age. We're like Irish triplets. You've heard the term Irish twins. They're like a year apart. Well, my brother, sister, and I are all a year apart, And that's the first memory that I have is I was in my footy pajamas and he was helping me put my coat on. So he must, if I'm in footy pajamas at that age, he's just barely got his shoes on. You know what I mean?
Right. But it's that, this book is really good. It kind of explains all of that. But no, even though you were close in age, your brother had that role
from an early age.
From a very early age.
Yeah.
Things are said to the oldest, like, I expect more out of you. You're the oldest. You should know better.
Yeah.
Do this I can remember my mom saying, watch out for your sister.
Absolutely.
All kinds of, it's kind of like pressure. You're too young to really carry that responsibility.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that the word too young. I would say, yes, there's pressure. And I would also say that as a parent of multiple children, I put that pressure on my older kids.
I did too.
Especially because we had 2 older and then a big gap and then 3 little ones, and I was losing my mind, right? So I would say, go get me this, go get me that. So there were a lot of extra tasks that were thrust upon the older ones, and as well as babysitting responsibilities.
Yes.
Okay. That's what we call a family. That's called just pitching in and helping out. So I'm not criticizing the use of the word "to." I just don't think I would throw it in there. I would just say there is pressure. Is it too much? Maybe, but life is what it is.
We're all trying to survive. Dr. Lehmann says that so asking your oldest child to get this and get that, you're not too young for that. But some of the responsibilities that put on the firstborn, you are too young for some of them, like just being accountable and responsible for the behavior of the younger one, things like that.
Yeah,
they're just too young. Depending on what point you have the next child and things like that.
Plus, as we talked about before we even opened up the microphones for this episode, all of this is just sort of spaghetti at the wall type of thing in terms of there are exceptions to every rule.
Absolutely.
There are unique circumstances where in one case it's this way, but in a very other case it's this way. I just don't want people to interpret it as this is the way it is.
Oh, no. As we said, and you just repeated, there are variables and there are exceptions. To get the full understanding, I would highly recommend this book because not only does it address these situations, it's helpful, you can benefit from it, but there's also tips on parenting if you're in the middle of it or you have an adult child who's starting to raise his or her own children. Yeah. It's very helpful.
Brings awareness.
Yeah, because I look back after I read this, and I know I use terms with my firstborn, Patrick, a lot of these phrases that we put on the firstborn. And then according to just by nature, then that firstborn feels, that they have to meet these certain expectations.
It's like a performance.
Yeah.
They have to perform.
Yeah.
By the way, if you've forgotten or you've missed it somehow, the name of the book is The Birth Order Book by Dr. Kevin Lehmann.
Yes. And I would get the revised edition, which is what I have, because the first one obviously is not as current as
and I'm
the
sure
next
that
one,
these books are available at any public library, but you can of course also order one.
Yeah. He did more studies after he wrote the first one. So that's that. And he also addresses some things that, because there's always going to be critics and people trying to debunk, or even people who have been to this man has been on almost every show you can think of, radio program, and
all the way back to Donahue. That's a long way back.
Yes, we'll get to that.
To Donahue.
Yes.
Man. So many people have never even heard of him.
Yeah.
Seriously. And back in the 70s and 80s, he was it all.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, so that is like in a nutshell, summing up the firstborn.
Okay, we're done now. Thank you for tuning in.
Right. I'm good with it. No, I'm kidding. All right. And now we'll go to the middle child.
Yes.
Children.
In the middle. The flyover children.
Yes, that's a good way to say. Yeah.
Right.
I couldn't help but think as I was reading this, I was thinking of my sister, who's the middle. I was thinking of my cousin Christy, and I was thinking a lot of my daughter Emily, who's in the middle.
Yeah.
And she absolutely fits a lot of this. I don't want to say stereotype, but it basically is.
Yeah.
All right. So to sum it up, the middle-born, he says it's an inconsistent paradox. They can really be all over. And at first I thought, well, that seems like a cop-out, like you can't really pinpoint it. But he explains in more detail. They are kind of a mystery. There's a lot of variables that can affect their characteristics. But overall, they can be... What's so funny?
It's just funny that the middle is more blurred and the oldest and the youngest are more defined. So there it is again, the darn middle. It's all,
Yeah, Dr. Lehmann says that out of all of those that he counsels in life, because he's a psychologist, the middle children he sees the least. They have the least problems. The older children have the most baggage, and the youngest have, I forgot how he worded it, but issues.
Well, it seems to me like it's extremes. So the oldest and the youngest have some extremes in their personality that perhaps middle children are just more even-keeled about.
Yeah.
So
Bottom line is
so it
they
doesn't
just
bother
don't
them
have
as much.
many, right.
Hang-ups and hookups and whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about the hookups, but hang-ups.
Well, actually, he says here, the bottom line is that the middle child is iffy. So he describes them as loner, quiet, shy, but also the paradox of that, sociable, friendly, outgoing. Then Impatient, easily frustrated, also takes life in stride, laid back. He describes...
Blurred. It's blurred.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very competitive, yet easygoing, not competitive. Rebel, family goat, peacemaker, mediator. Aggressive, a scrapper, avoids conflict. So
family goat meaning what? Family goat. Like takes the blame? Like scapegoat? Or goat as in like greatest of all time? Goat.
Oh, no, not that kind.
Okay, scapegoat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
That had to be explained to me when
I know. I forgot all about
Tom
that.
Brady was described as the goat. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm picturing a goat.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Why don't you describe again? Even though you just said what a goat is, I don't think people caught it.
In sports, if one is called a goat, they are the greatest of all time. GOAT.
Yeah.
Just get that straight. Instead of a goat, like goat.
Right.
Like Tom Brady's a good-looking goat, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Did you know the middle child leaves home the quickest, typically?
Not true in the case of my sister. She was the last one to leave home. But okay.
You think about it. So your middle children are Luke and Joel.
Yeah, they were out.
Out
of here. ASAP. True that.
And Luke left before Nate, right?
No.
Didn't he go to Europe?
No. Nate was already out. Nate was out too pretty quick, but I think he was motivated to get out because he had 4 younger brothers.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's, again, another variable with a big family.
It's different.
Yes, right. But statistically, the middle child moves away first and the farthest.
Interesting.
And I was thinking about Emily.
Yeah.
She moved out first and wanted to go the furthest. She said that since college.
Pat moved out first from your home because Emily and Ellie were left at your home in this home here.
Okay, this is true. But so we made a move, and my son was too upset to move with us. He did not want to leave. He only moved to my sister's home because he was too upset to leave our family home. He was the one that recorded room to room the house we moved out of. He was tore up.
Yeah.
So he actually wanted to stay. So I think that case is a little bit
different. See, that's where all the nuances of all the
right.
differences come in.
Right, exactly.
All right.
Oh, I wrote down in this little side note on this page, Emily, Wendy, Luke, and Joel, and I think it says, because of this early search for friends and recognition outside the home while growing up, the middle child may be the one who moves away from the family as an adult. And the reason he says a search for friends and family or recognition is he says the middle child oftentimes has a lot of friends or wants to find friends outside of the family.
That would be true of Luke and Joel for sure in terms of school experiences. Luke, we always called him, he had a posse.
Yes.
Yeah, he always traveled like a flock.
Yes.
There was a flock of kids around him.
Yes, that is true.
Very
That's
true.
why I wrote his name on there.
Yeah, interesting.
And interestingly as well, that also says that the middle child also is secretive and holds a lot in and doesn't open up as much. And I would say that of my sister, I would say that she definitely doesn't open up as much as myself and my younger brother.
Well, and when you think about 3 kids, like let's say they're just little kids, the oldest one is bossy and the youngest one is a tattletale. So how is the middle one going to get anything in edgewise, right?
Right.
The middle one's going, oh my gosh, there are too many words being shared here.
Yeah.
The oldest one can't stop talking about how to do it right, and the youngest one keeps on blabbing about, telling, tattletale.
Yes.
I joke with myself and my audience about being over 50, and when my dad was still alive, I would tell on my sister.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I would say, Dad, Kelly won't get a colonoscopy. Like this is the stupidest thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm telling him.
But you kind of knew that it was like silly. Weren't you being playful?
Yeah. But still, at the same time, yes, being playful. But as the youngest in our sibling group, I'm still kind of like that, even though I don't have anybody to tell anymore. Like.
I think you'll tell anyone who listens.
True. Listen to this. Listen to this, audience. My sister won't get a colonoscopy.
I cannot wait to get to the baby thing of the thing.
Okay,
yeah, but we got to go with this. Shout out to the middle child, because Dr. Lehmann's observation is that the middle children may turn out to be the best adjusted adults. And then he goes on about they're the ones he sees the least.
Right.
But it's also, he does point out too that they might need the help, but are not as likely to seek the help. Whereas the oldest child definitely recognizes and is more analytical, sees a problem, and has a lot of issues, and so wants to get fixed. And before you start laughing too hard, Tracy, he said about the baby and the family too. Well, that they're like, I need help, and they'll do anything.
Well, and they may have court-ordered mandated therapy somewhere, where the middle child is more even keel. The youngest one is in trouble with the law, and so the court says you need help. Or the anger management, for the old, whatever.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So while we are discussing middle children.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to remind you, this book was written, late 90s, I think is when it was published. Whatever. Long time ago, okay?
Yeah.
Because now we're 2020.
2022.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you.
To be exact.
Okay.
Go ahead. Did you forget what you say? Oh. It's happening. She's coughing.
Never mind. Let's get on with this.
Go ahead.
Okay. So he points out that Donald Trump is a middle child who went on to be like the firstborn. So he had an older brother, Freddie, and Freddie, though, was more like complacent. So the father, Trump, he wanted to pass on the apartment, the construction, whatever, in New York to his firstborn son. But that son, Freddie, was complacent and wanted to please people rather than manage or control them. But Donald, 8 years younger than his oldest brother, and there were some sisters in there, he took over the position of successor to his father more or less by default. And his career in real estate was launched. And he does a whole little section on Donald Trump and his Trump talking about making deals and how fun it was. He didn't really care about the money necessarily. It was more he just loved the wheeling and the dealing and that kind of thing.
And this was all pre-political Trump.
This was
just businessman
This
Trump.
is right. This is exactly.
Well, the same thing happened in England with the king who abdicated to the younger one, and that's how Queen Elizabeth got schnookered in.
That's right.
Because she wasn't even supposed to be there.
Yes.
But the brother ahead of King whatever her dad's name was.
Yeah, because his real name was David. Or it's the other way around. But then his king name was, I forget now. But
well,
anyway.
it happened
yes.
that the first
Yes.
guy, he didn't want anything to do with it. And he was like, I'm done. Donezo. Here you go. To the younger brother. And the other younger brother went, okay.
And you think about from the beginning of time, the very first children, Cain and Abel.
Yeah, there were issues.
Yes.
Hello.
Right. And so Cain was
killed
the older.
Abel. Yes, he killed Abel.
Mm-hmm.
Abel was the one who gave
jealousy,
better sacrifices and offerings.
Yeah.
And Cain was jealous, and he whacked him. Yeah. He's whacked, as they say.
And since we're on this with biblical times, you think about too, so then we have the prodigal son, who is the youngest, and the older son. I remember reading that as a young Christian, baby Christian.
Yeah.
I couldn't understand how the father embraces the prodigal son. So just a quick synopsis of that story.
We got all day, Catherine.
Hopefully our listeners do too. The father has an inheritance for the sons, and the youngest son squanders the money away right away, and he goes off and he lives with pigs or works with pigs or something, which was really, really beneath anybody.
Because
it was one of the worst jobs.
He came to that end.
Very low.
He basically went to Vegas and shot it all.
Yeah, right.
And then he had to be with the homeless people.
Now, meanwhile, the firstborn, he stays loyal. He works in the fields. He gives his father all his time and is responsible and all these things. Well, then the son, the prodigal son, the younger son, comes back, and the father embraces him and gives him, I think, a coat, or maybe that's Joseph.
No, he gives him a coat and he kills the fatted calf. Yeah, right. For a celebration, and he gives him a ring.
Yes. And the firstborn is like, what the heck? I've been here
jealous
doing well. And when I first read that, I too was like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing about Bible study is that's so I was in a Bible study and kind of learned, why is this significant? Why did God want to point that out? And it was because the father was so happy. I'm getting emotional just talking about it, that his son who was lost has now come back home saying, I need you.
Right.
Yeah, I need you, Dad. I did this. It was wrong. And the father wanted to celebrate that. But it didn't mean anything less of the older son. It's just embracing, my son's back. Anyway.
Well, and the fact that the bottom line is the son cannot do it without the father.
Exactly.
And really that's a metaphor for life. Right. We cannot do this life without a connection with our Heavenly Father. Mm-hmm. And all he wants is for us to recognize that and come to him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what a celebration.
Wow. We're going deep now.
I know. I love it.
Take a deep dive.
All right. Where were we now?
Well,
let's skip over the middle child.
Right. We're done with the middle child. Basically, we summed up that they're the most balanced because they're ignored. Okay?
Yeah, supposedly.
So who cares? Let's go to the baby.
Yeah. Actually, I did. Well, let me just see what I underlined here. Let's see. Anything good? Oh, here we go again. That they're the least. They have no problem coming with psychology. Oh, no, that's the firstborn. Yeah. Well,
let's go to the baby. Go to the baby. Go to the baby. Go to the baby.
Okay. All right. I have a blue tab here. Why? Oh, should I list their characteristics?
You might as well if they're going to feel bad. Wah, wah.
Yeah.
Characteristics of middle children.
Well, they're now I already listed them, but then we could point out the strengths and weaknesses of each one. Okay.
Let's do that.
So typical trait, they grow up feeling squeezed and rootless. So the strengths in that category are they learn to not be spoiled.
True.
The weaknesses, they may be rebellious because they don't feel they fit in.
Also true.
Another typical trait is they have reasonable expectations. And the strength for that is because life hasn't always been fair, they are unspoiled and realistic. The weaknesses on that realm, though, is that being treated unfairly may have made them suspicious, cynical, and even bitter.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Interesting.
I think so. They can be a social lion. That's a typical trait. Strength from that, relationships are very important. They make friends and tend to keep them. Okay. And their weaknesses, friends can be too important and not offending them may cloud judgment on key decisions.
It's interesting to me that there are strengths and weaknesses to each trait. That's so true in everything.
Yes, and I skipped that part on the firstborn, but that's okay. Typical traits for a middle child, once again, independent thinker. So the strength is they're willing to do things differently, take a risk, strike out on their own. The weakness on that realm is that they may appear to be bullheaded, stubborn, unwilling to cooperate.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Another trait, they're compromising. So a strength is they know how to get along with others, can be skilled at mediating disputes or negotiating disagreements. The weaknesses, though, can be seen as willing to have peace at any price. Others may try to take advantage of them. They could be diplomatic, so that means their strength would be peacemakers, willing to work things out, great at seeing issues from both sides. The weaknesses, though, they may hate confrontation, often choose not to share their real opinions and feelings. And lastly, they're secretive many times. The strength on that is they can be trusted with sensitive information and know how to keep secrets. But the weakness on that is that they may fail to admit it when they need help. It's just too embarrassing. He has a whole section about the middle child feeling embarrassed.
Do you know what's interesting about that? Because, of course, when I'm hearing the whole list, I'm thinking about my own experiences with my middle children, as well as my sister and our family. When our mom passed away, we were in our 20s.
Okay.
So we, theoretically would have a lot of life to live, right? Because she died as a young woman. We were young adults when she died. She wrote a note not to be opened until the year 2020 or 2000. It was 2000, I think, at the year 2000.
Okay.
And she died in 1993.
Yes.
So that meant somebody was going to have to hang on to that note for 7 years before it could be opened. So yeah, I think I'm getting this right, that it was the year 2000. Guess who she gave it to?
Kelly.
Yes.
Your
the
sister who was in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because if she gave it to me,
no,
it would have been opened immediately.
Yes. Oh gosh. And that is so like my husband, Kenny, who is not the youngest in the family, but he is the youngest of 3 brothers.
Right. So he has the traits of a youngest.
He does.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that's what attracted to me to him, not, so much that he can't wait.
Yeah.
but the fact that he was, funny, opposite of me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not only that, but my sister knew where the letter was, because that's also a thing of not knowing where stuff is. If you're a little, woohoo.
He addresses that.
Yeah, like what?
Absent-minded, loses things.
Yeah. I just found it interesting as you're reading that. I'm like, that's probably why mom gave that letter to Kelly. Because, obviously, my mom died of cancer. So she knew she was sick, going to die. Yeah. And it was a pretty aggressive cancer. So she just figured, I'm going to write this note. Interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes,
I should write a note. I should write a note to my kids.
I think we all should.
Yeah.
Why not?
Open this.
We're going to die
30 years.
someday.
Yeah. I don't know if they would.
I feel creepy just saying
I know. Let's
that.
move on. Suddenly, I don't like where we're going.
Well, you're going to like this.
Okay, good. Baby.
Lastborns often love the limelight.
Oh,
Would you say that's true?
yes.
I would say that's
100%.
true too. And notice it says often. It doesn't mean every lastborn.
No, but
okay.
go
But
on.
it's the law of averages
Yeah.
and statistics all point to that. It's just, and so Kevin Lehmann, I highly recommend this book if I haven't said it already, which I know I have. It's funny because he goes on, he is the baby of the family. He goes on about his story. And then he even says, I realize I'm doing this, but it's all to say this, and that,
Plus, it gives him the stage. Here's the stage.
Oh, yeah. He learned when he was 8 years old. He loved when people laughed. Yeah. And so he knew he strived for that. So he was the class clown. He failed in school. And this is his story. Failed in school, failed terribly in high school. Couldn't get into college. But then his life got turned around. His story is really interesting. I never forgot it. It was years ago we saw him.
Yeah, it was. Very long time ago.
The first time.
I recall him mentioning comedians who were last born. So just like he mentioned presidents who were firstborn, he had a big, long list of comedians who were all last born and was noting the fact that the youngest are the funniest.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that the youngest are the dumbest or anything like that, because even though he gives, great emphasis
God,
on
pointing this out.
on the fact that he graduated fourth from the bottom, I, on the other hand,
I love that you're pointing this out. He only failed because he was a class clown.
I was not that.
No, and he just did anything for a laugh.
Yeah.
At the sacrifice of his own education. I mean, he was pretty extreme.
Well, and obviously he overcame that because he became Dr. Kevin Lehmann.
He strove. So we'll get to that, Tracy.
All right.
About the persistent youngest one. Okay. All right.
Hurry up.
Yeah. I'm going to read some of the things I underlined because I felt they were definitely something worthy of saying. The youngest may have been born last, but he has a sixth sense that tells him he is not going to be least.
Okay. Of course.
Youngest children in the family are typically the outgoing charmers, the personable manipulators. They are also affectionate, uncomplicated, and sometimes a little absent-minded. He says, they're what? Me worry? Approach to life gets smiles and shakes of the head. And he points out something about lastborns are the most likely to show up at the elementary school concert or the Sunday school picnic, unzipped, unbuttoned, in some delicately obvious area.
All right. I have to just interject here for a moment. So hold your place.
Yes.
Catherine and I travel quite a bit.
Yeah.
Well, now we're getting back to it. And we did this before the pandemic. Traveled for
ministry
to do ministry, to do shows. All right. And we'll get in the car, and I'm packed and ready to go. And she gets in the car, and she's like, okay, you know where we're going? And I'm like, yeah, Alabama. She's like, do you have directions? No, it's just Alabama. Right?
Right.
But
this is true.
But Catherine, the firstborn, she'll have
a backup.
Okay. Not only does she oftentimes have printed directions written in case if anything happens, like the internet goes out, the battery is dead.
No Wi-Fi. Come on now.
But she also has a paper atlas. An atlas. Catherine, do you know how many people don't even know what an atlas is?
Well, too bad for them. They're going to get lost one day when the grid gets all jazzed up. They're not going to be able to read.
Okay, so true story. We're going to Alabama. We're going to a gig. And she's like, where is it? And I'm like, Alabama. And we're at in Alabama. Dothan or Dothan. I didn't know how to pronounce Dothan.
Yeah.
Dothan, Alabama. Where's that? I don't know. Look it up. And then we ended up staying at our friend's house, Darlene.
Yes.
And we really, it was kind of on the way, but not really. It was just.
It was not on the way.
Not really.
I mean, it was south, but it was opposite.
It was a little bit out of the way.
Yeah.
But.
We wanted to see her.
Right. So
Hi, Dar.
I know. She's one of our top listeners.
Yes.
I wanted to include a visit on the way because I have a high value in terms of relationships.
Yes.
All right. So we stop on the way at Dar's house and we spent the night there and had a blast. And then in the morning we get up and we get out in the car and we want to go to Goodwill because that's one of the things that we do. It's just fun.
Goodwill.
So we just say into the GPS thing, post this Goodwill. And we think it's going to take us to, on our way. But we end up and then we're talking. I think I've shared this before on this podcast, but we're yipping and yapping and talking, and pretty soon we see an arch, a gigantic one, not like the golden arches like McDonald's arch. No, the arch, and it's sticking way out into the sky. And I look at I look at the arch and I go, wait a minute. How many cities do you think have one of those? Because I know of the one in St. Louis. We're not supposed to be there.
Yes.
And that's where we were.
And as you were saying it, I'm realizing there's only one. Only one.
Yeah.
And you know what else? I don't know if I shared this with you ever. I was thinking, why? didn't I double check where the GPS was taking us? I just trusted and went along with it.
Yeah.
Which is not like me.
Yeah. So interesting, the adventures of the oldest and the youngest traveling together.
So funny.
Thank you for that little divergence.
Yeah. He points out it stands to reason then that the family clown or entertainer is likely to be the last born.
True.
You know, because they like to get that laugh or get that attention. He does point out the clowns also have a dark side.
Yes.
He says a typical characteristic of the last born is that he is carefree and vivacious, a real people person who is usually popular in spite of or because of his clowning antics. But because of that, one could be, so being charming, outgoing, affectionate, and uncomplicated, they can also be rebellious, temperamental, manipulative, spoiled, impatient, and impetuous. And, I think he falls under that.
Also true.
Yes.
I think the temperamental one resonated the most with me of that list, because your emotions can go all over the place for any of us. But I think, I'm just speaking for myself, I can have a tendency to be like super excited about something or not care at all about it, and have like this big... Catherine says I'm blasé.
Yes.
I'm blasé until I'm not.
Until you're not.
And then when I'm not, it's like I have saved up all of my caring for one thing.
Yes.
And then I can be over the top like, oh no, it's going down.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we'll get to that too, because so what I did was I marked these pages and I am right now just going through the parts I highlighted, but we'll definitely address that as well. He points out the lastborns carry the curse of not being taken very seriously, first by their families and then by the world. And many lastborns have a burning, he puts this in quotes, burning desire to make an important contribution to the world. I would say that about you.
Yeah.
You definitely.
I would say that too. Especially in terms of my mission with comedy, because it's not just about comedy.
No.
It's about the mission of introducing Jesus and cancer screenings.
Well, the thing about you is, you have these characteristics, but you're a mature woman and you're also a very mature Christian. So you have learned to take your gifts and just the way you are and put it to a productive, really very good contribution to the world.
I would suppose that you could say that I've learned how to do it. I would say that I was kind of thrust on that path with my cancer thing, because I don't think I would be on that path if I wasn't a cancer survivor.
No, but all of that was just carefully orchestrated by our good Father. Okay. Also, he points out lastborns instinctively know and understand that their knowledge and ability carry far less weight than that of their older brothers and sisters. And he goes on to explain then how that molds you, the youngest, and why they are the way they are. And that often the lastborns are used to being put down or written off, and then they carry this like, I'll show them attitude. Like just wanting to make their mark in the world.
It's so interesting because when I was graduating from high school, my brother was in college and he had gone away to college. And my mom was trying to talk me into junior college, stay at home and go to junior college. And I was like, no, what he gets to, I want to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
and ended up going away.
Dr. Kevin Lehmann, he explains similar to that. When he was younger, there weren't any community colleges, and he had done so poorly in high school, not because he was unintelligent, but because he was such a clown.
Yeah, he was distracted.
Right, that this man was persistent. I mean, he applied to 160 colleges, and the counselor at school said, you're never going to get into them. And he didn't. He wasn't accepted by any of them. But his denomination church that he went to, he was persistent in writing letters and getting them to get him in somehow. And he has an interesting story.
Yeah.
He really does, because
Good
once
for
it
him.
clicked for him, yes.
Yeah, he was like, you know what? I'm not going to be denied this thing, whatever it is.
Yes.
That is a baby of the family. You're going to at least go all the way in your trying.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I'm just going to read this paragraph. Dr. Lehmann points out he takes little things from other experts and people who have written books on for example, this one, First Child, Second Child, by Wilson and Eddington. And he says here, some lastborns become very adept at charming the world in various ways, while others grow up with a feeling that the only way they can gain anybody's attention is by making a mess, by being a problem child or a pest or a rebel who enjoys shooting spitballs at City Hall. If you are a typical lastborn, you have a fair share of both the charmer and the rebel in your makeup. And other people are often caught off guard by the fact that you can be endearing one minute and hard to deal with the next. And that's a clip from this other author.
Mm-hmm.
Another characteristic charts that lastborn is that they are suckers for praise and encouragement. And I think I put LOL on the side of this here. It says, with that kind of, makeup, the lastborn barely needs food. He's living on praise.
I wouldn't say that. No. I would say I could use less food.
Yeah, well.
Interesting.
Yeah. And also, there can be a bundle of uncertain oblivions. Lastborns are a seesaw of emotions and experiences that they find hard to explain or understand. And babies of the family can be charming and endearing, but then turn rebellious and hard to deal with. We can change from powerhouses of energy into basket cases who feel helpless.
That's funny.
Yes. Lastborns are treated with ambivalence, coddled, cuddled, and spoiled one minute, but put down and made fun of the next. In self-defense, we babies of the family grow up with an independent cockiness that helps cover all our self-doubt and confusion. He also points out a major trait is persistence, and he goes on to explain how he was very persistent in getting on the Donahue show, and that he wanted to be on there, and he was rejected, I don't remember how many times, but over and over. And finally he gets on, but he thinks it's because he was such a pest that
It just let him in.
Mm-hmm.
The point that you made about you can be praised one minute and put down the next.
Mm-hmm.
I recall being a young kid, and my sister, she would beat the crap out of me at home. But on the playground, if somebody looked at me the wrong way, she would defend me like I was her prize and she was protecting me, And so as a last born, I'm going, wait, what?
Right.
Can't we do this at home?
How confusing that could be. I can remember actually as an oldest picking on my younger sister and brother, but mostly my sister, I think. I'm not sure. I think there was such an age gap between me and my brother Kevin, was 6 years.
Right.
And I have to say, when I was in high school and even junior high age, I didn't pay attention to him really, other than I just thought he was so cute. Like I used to like to, when he was sleeping, he doesn't even probably know this, I used to go in and just kind of look at him, and I would sniff his little cookie hands, like they smelled like dough and cookies and stuff like that. And so not so much him, but my sister, I do remember. But at the same time, if I found out that anybody else did, and I spoke up for her or did whatever.
Interesting.
She might not say that, but it's true. And he also points out that a lastborn is more likely to just do it. And he's like, I wouldn't be surprised if they're the ones that came up with the slogan for Nike. Yeah. And then just worry about repercussions later.
Wow.
Interesting.
Something I put on my sheet here to remember to say is about the Baby of the Family Club.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I am the president of this club. Years ago, when Catherine and I lived next door to each other, and we were raising our kids, I would take the youngest in my family, Caleb, and the youngest in her family, Ellis, and the three of us would go for ice cream. Yeah. And I would go get Ellis, and I would tell the kids, now, listen, this is an exclusive club. This is the Baby of the Family Club, and I'm in charge here. I'm the president because I've got the driver's license and the money. And you two are members.
Yeah.
No one else can come. And I wanted them to feel unique and special and like that's a privilege time.
I always thought that was so special. And I know that Ellis really enjoyed that and felt special. And so I appreciated that very much. And at the same time, I thought, I'm the oldest. I can't imagine myself and Nate, your oldest, and my son Patrick together, like having our little club.
Right.
No.
Because the three oldest of the family would go, what is this for? What is this about? What is the purpose of this? Why?
I don't need this.
Why do you have to label it that? It's just getting ice cream.
Well, and especially, like, I don't need this.
Right.
Like, you know, I got my own stuff to do.
But the babies in the family are like, wee.
Oh, yeah. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Mm-hmm. I love, too, that. So you and I, you're the baby, obviously, as we've said many, many times.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the oldest. And how it works for our, you know, like relationship.
Yeah.
And I also, but, you know, at the same time, you're older than me.
Yes.
So even though you're a baby of the family, you are older than me. So
I like that. I like that because in one way, it's kind of like you're my little sister that I never had, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's fun. I don't know. It's just fun. Mm-hmm. Maybe you like it too. Like maybe in some way you like not being the oldest in a relationship like that.
I always wanted an older sibling especially a brother.
Okay.
And so my really good friend Debbie that I grew up with, she was one of 9.
Wow.
And she was second to the youngest. And she had all these older siblings. And they're cooler. They know things.
They're a group. I mean, that's like a little mini farm
like
situation.
You know, and I just remember thinking, I wish I had somebody to break the mold. I wish I had someone who would like look out for me or whatever the case. But I was an adult by the time I embraced my so-called position.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, do you have anything else to share? Or are you finished with?
I'm finished with the book.
Okay. Great. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
Well, what else did you want to share other than the book?
Am I supposed to?
No.
Okay,
but I'm just curious if you sounded as if you had something else that you wanted to.
Oh, no, I'm good.
Okay. Well, we've talked about the book. We've talked about our experiences as besties and you being the oldest and me being the youngest. Mm-hmm. Now, well, before we move to the call to action, because that's like the next thing on our list, I did want to reference the 2015 studies that are out there.
Right.
These are scientific studies. There's 2 papers out there. If you Google them, 2015 studies on birth order, whatever, you can look them up and read them. They're very, very complex. Mm-hmm. Basically, the bottom line that they came up with was there's not a lot to substantiate these claims that birth order really impacts personality other than the oldest is slightly more intelligent. That was the bottom line of these 2 papers. Mm-hmm. And I looked to see if Dr. Kevin Lehmann had any kind of a rebuttal to that or a response, and I couldn't find one. I'd be curious to know what his counter would be to that. Yeah.
And I'll say that in his book, he does address his adversaries. Mm-hmm. He does have feedback for some of these people that are saying, hey, that's not the case in my family, or people who want to debunk him. He does have comments about that. I have to say that I'm all fired up because I just read pretty much the whole book. And I believe in his professional authoritative stance in that because of his extensive research, the people he counsels, his years of experience and those things. Also, a way to sum that up too is just the law of averages. You can't dispute statistics.
Well, yeah, but these people that did this, the study, they did large groups that they studied in the United Kingdom, the United States, as well as Germany. They may say the same thing. They may come and say, look, you can't dispute these statistics. It'd just be an interesting debate.
Yeah.
And I bring it to the table in order to just sort of bring it to the table.
Yeah.
That there are other points of view.
Sure.
And they're valid just as anybody's point of view is valid. It's a valid point of view. It's your perception. It's your point of view on the subject. My encouragement would be, as we go into the call to action, and then we're going to get to the inspirational close, which is our scripture. But the call to action for today is to read this book.
Yes.
Just read it.
Yeah.
Read it with an open mind.
Yeah.
Read it because in my opinion, who cares what the research says? If the book brings some value, read the book, chew up the meat, spit out the bones, learn something. And then maybe read it a second time and learn a new thing.
Right.
And it just, knowledge is power. And,
Absolutely.
And it really does bring, I don't know, some goodness to it, because if you can understand yourself better and the people around you and have a little bit more grace for everybody, I think our world is better.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So read the book. Again, what's the name of the book, Catherine?
It is The Birth Order Book, Why You Are the Way You Are, by
Okay.
Dr. Kevin Lehmann, Leman.
Very good. All right. I know you can get it at your public library, and I'm 100% you can get it online. So check it out.
Yeah, it is a best-selling book. It's internationally known.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to our scripture, which is Psalm 127,
3.
verse 3. It says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb, a reward."
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Fruit of the womb.
Yeah, not the loom. Fruit of the loom. Fruit of the
Yeah.
loom. I like that because it sums up all children. Doesn't matter
Right.
what order.
Right.
All children are a treasure and a reward.
And a creation of Almighty God. And we need to remember that.
Right.
Because He created each and every person with a purpose.
That's right.
So whether you're firstborn or somewhere in the middle or an only child or lastborn, matters not. You're created by the Creator. You are a creation.
That's exactly
with
right.
purpose.
And you matter.
Amen. Well, that our next topic is one of my faves,
Yes.
pain tolerance. Because my pain tolerance is zero. And
Mine's high.
Catherine has a claim to pain.
It's not a claim. It's true.
So we're going to discuss it next week.
Okay.
Don't miss it.
Yes.
It's going to be a lot of fun and not painful.
Okay.
All right. Well, you've been listening to the
Wait.
What?
Did we say our call to action?
I did. We just went
did
over
you?
that like thoroughly,
Oh, yeah, we did.
extensively.
Read the book. Okay. You know why? It doesn't match what I had. I think I had something else.
Oh, boy.
Where'd I put it?
Never mind. You've been listening to the Life Happens, Laugh Anyway podcast. I'm still comedian Tracy
I'm
Degraff.
still Catherine, the firstborn.
See ya.
Bye.